I'm always on the look for interesting grain patterns. And so I used some wood, some walnut with some very interesting grain that I thought would come together at kind of a book match with a seam down the middle to highlight the highlight from the pommel all the way up through the bear. And that gave the bear a little different look with this grain on either side of this line. So it highlights the fact that it's very symmetrical. Well, so we're going to make a splat, and the way to do it is I've got a pattern right here, and the pattern is going to provide the curve that we're looking for, and we're going to glue together 4 pieces, and the way to get this look here, where the grain is flowing together, is first to select a piece of wood that has grain that's interesting. And one of the things I liked about this piece is it's almost looks bleached compared to some other pieces of walnut. And it's got a grain pattern coming this way. Well, I'm not sure how it's going to look yet, but I think that's indicative of something that will give us a look like that, with the grain flowing toward that center line. And so the way to try to make that happen is I've got, we're going to cut 2 pieces that I've laid out with this profile, and the bottom edge goes here and the top goes up there, and you have to know which is the top and which is the bottom. And this is going to be the front. The back, your back will sit, or the child's back will sit against that point right there. So we're going to bandsaw these pieces out and take a look at them. And if they look like what we want, we can edge glue them all together, and then we can work on making that splat with the nice curves that it has. Great looking S-curves. Let's see what happens. So I've got my pattern here, and I've got it laid out such that I was able to draw a red line. I wanted to see what was going to be part of this splat and what wasn't. It looks like we've got some pretty good grain going right here, kind of forming in an area where we can carve a bear or whatever we're going to carve here. Right there, and I think it's going to look good. So we're going to glue it up. We're going to use some Titebond 3 here and put some clamps on it, leave it overnight, then tomorrow the fun begins. Okay, that looks good. After we take these out of the clamps, then we can start shaping it. And I think it's going to be really nice. A good home for a little bear. Now we're going to fit the back splat to our mortises here. And the way I go about doing this is first take your splat that you glued up out of the clamps, clean all the glue off and everything. And I just took the grinder with sandpaper and kind of lightly went over it to kind of get rid of all of that stuff, because it gets in the way of getting your measurements and the layout for this. You have a pattern that is a half pattern, and be sure to put the center line on the center line and get the top in the right place and the bottom at the right place. And so I've used that to lay out what we're going to need to do here. All right, so here's the center line. Here's the center line of the splat. And here is the shoulder that's going to fit here, and the shoulder that's going to fit there. Now, our measurement at the center line to the bottom of the mortise is about 1 inch. So we need to create a tenon here that is 1/4 of an inch in thickness so that it will slide into the mortise here. We also have to be considerate of the fact that we've got this curve. Now, I came up with a little template for the curve so you could know what to shoot for, and yours will be paper, I would probably, instead of putting this on a solid piece of wood, I would use a poster board so that it would bend here. And using this, we can lay out, or we can get that curve exactly the way we need it, flip it over to the other side and get the curve. Then you can use this curve to lay out, well, there, right there, there's the center line, CL for center line. This is another kind of half pattern. And once we cut this part off here, leaving a little shoulder there to cover up the end of the mortise, and the same thing on the other side. Once we do that, we'll only have this part down here left. This will go away. This will bandsaw away. And we'll cut to this little line right here, making that shoulder. And then our tenon will need to have this little bit of curve to it. And I'll show you how to do that. So the next thing for me to do is take this to the bandsaw, since I've got everything laid out. And I'll make my cuts to take this off, this off, this off, this off, all the way up here to the top. And we'll work on fitting that. Let's go to the bandsaw. All right, I cut a block here that's 1.5 inches thick. And I've got it taped here to make sure while I am making my cut that the angle of the bandsaw cut is pretty close to what is needed so that the shoulders will fit flush on the deck. So that's just a little something I thought about that would help. Now let's continue to fit our tenon back to the bench. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a gouge here with a very, very small sweep. This is a number 3 sweep. It's a 14 millimeter gouge. And I just want to make a kind of a stop cut right here that will eventually be the shoulder. So that's exactly what I want. And I can use the gouge to help trace that around. And I'm just cutting in. This is going to help define the curve of that shoulder. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over, do the same thing on the other side. And now what I need to do is to make sure that we've got some support here, and I think I've done that. Got some wedges here and got a block here and another thing. I've got my hold fast down. So let's see what happens. Doing the same kind of thing. Start in the middle. You know, I hear you knocking, but you can't come in. To take some off of each side of our tenon till we get the thickness down to 1/4 of an inch so it'll fit into the mortise. Keep all the squareness I can for as long as I can, but to clamp this and hold it while I'm working on the shoulders down here, I need to be able to pinch it between some dogs right there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut both of these sides of the splat. We've got to get the right thickness for our tenon here on the splat. This end is 3/8 of an inch. And so I've laid out 2 points here so that if I take a 1/16 off of that side of the splat and a 1/16 off of this side, then we'll have 1/4 of an inch. And I don't want to go too far with it. I want to kind of taper it down to that. And but I've got to get enough that it's going to fit into that little curved part of the headrest. So let me finish laying that out. I've got a marking gauge. And so we're going to do it by hand just like we did the other one. then when we get where we need to, it'll fit right in, and then we can taper down to that point. All right. Let's get set up, and I'll get my shoulder plane out, and we'll make it fit. So this is the width of our mortise right here. And so I'm going to cut a little bit off of the outside of this to start making the tenon that will go into it. So I just drew a straight line down from that point, a straight line down from here, and then we can shape that up after we get it all to fit. See how much goes into the mortise. So I'll go over to the bandsaw and do that very quickly, and I'll come back. All right, I figured out how to clamp everything down and hold it. Sometimes with hand tools, that's the hardest part of the job. But we're going to work on the shoulders down here, trying to make this 1/4-inch tenon. And by golly, I'm going to use a shoulder plane. So just watch me. Got to be careful of the grain. Looks like my grain is going in that direction. So I'm on this side. And let's see, we're gonna cut down to the line. Every once in a while we need to check, see where we are. Of course, we've still got a ways to go. Okay, now I'm going to get a chisel, and if we got deep enough right here, we might be able to lift this little piece off right there, right to the line. Let me get a chisel and we'll give that a try. Yeah, we'll try to lift it right to that line that we cut in with the gouge. Let's see if it works. So here's one side here. We've got it down to the line. We have cut to the shoulder. And so now we just need to flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Our holding will be a little different because of the curve. But we'll work that out, and then I'll show it to you. but we are going to need to fair this line a bit so that we have a nice curve. Same thing on the other side. Yeah. All right, now let's turn it over. Do something very similar here. Yeah, I'm making a lot of strokes going across first to get rid of this this high point here, this little shoulder, and then kind of tapering down. So let's get at it. It's getting there. Let me get a spoke shave. I'm going to work it just a little bit and work it with a scraper. And I think we'll have a very nice fit and a nice curve. It's very enjoyable. All right. That looks real nice. I'm happy with that. A little bit of sanding with a sanding block on our tenon might help. Some work on the edges and everything here. I could scoop it out just a little bit, but that's up to you as what you decide to do with it. Now, we need to move on, build the chair again. Put it all together and see what we can come up with for a headrest. Now, to finish up the building of the chair, we need to add a headrest and some sleds. Let's do it.